questions from the audience. We have microphones out there. A couple of preliminary rules. Please remember the Jeopardy rule and ask your question in the form of a question rather than a statement. If you don't do that, you won't go on to Double Jeopardy or Final Jeopardy. Please stand up. Wait for the microphone. Stand up. State your name and affiliation if you're willing to do so for the recording or for the transmission. Bob, if you keep your answers brief, we'll be able to get in more questions. If we go longer, we'll get less questions. So, I believe there's a woman right back there next to Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Mary Carrick. You didn't mention this, and I've heard different theories about what's really behind it. Is Agenda 21 from the UN? I know it's mainly to attack our ability to create energy, but a lot of people have been spreading rumors that it's about depopulating the Earth by 90%. And it's a lot of things that you said demonstrate that. And also getting back into the eugenics thing, my understanding is that Hitler actually was influenced and had created his eugenics program based on what we were doing 20, 30 years before he came to power. And Margaret Sanger was a big eugenicist. I've seen a video on YouTube. It was some old white lady who was American from Planned Parenthood at a conference in Britain 2 years after World War II ended, when millions and millions of European people on both sides died. And she was advocating for 10 years that no European woman should have children.
Okay, let me answer them briefly. Agenda 21 is one of many of these international UN things where a bunch of bureaucrats get together and attempt to prescribe guidelines that would limit world economic growth. It's not unique. It will pass. We'll see another one. Fundamentally, this ideology adopted by these bureaucracies is very inimical to the United States. As I said, if you view the world's resources as being limited, then countries which are creative and which accelerate economic growth, they are the criminals whose activities must be constrained, and people are trying. It's like the Lilliputians throwing threads on Gulliver, but if enough of them do it, they can tie him down. And with respect to the Nazis, it is true that the Nazi eugenics laws in terms of sterilization of invalids, blind people, deaf people, paupers, people with mental illnesses were copied from American legislation that had been written by the Eugenics Records Office in Cold Spring Harbor, funded by the Harriman family. Yes, that's a fact. And Margaret Sanger was certainly a eugenicist.
Gentleman over here.
Nat Nasworth with the Christian Post. In the healthcare bill that they had put in there for prenatal testing, that was going to be covered, which can discover birth defects, and the defects can't be fixed while still in the womb. So really, the main purpose is for the parents to decide whether or not to terminate the pregnancy. So I was wondering if you see or know of any relationship between the prenatal testing and some of the things you've been talking about?
Well, that would certainly facilitate a eugenics activity, whether organized or not. But actually, with respect to this issue, something very shocking occurred last week, exactly a week ago today, that only got a little bit of coverage. In testimony in Congress, Kathleen Sebelius actually said that Obamacare would save the nation a lot of money because it would distribute contraceptives and thus reduce the number of births. Now, this is utterly remarkable, and one of the congressmen there said he was just astonished by, it was Tim Murphy said that, this is an incredible thing. The notion that by preventing children from being born, we will save the nation money. This mirrors Nazi propaganda calling for a euthanasia of useless eaters because it would save us all money. It was an incredible statement.
Sam? The man in black.
I'm Sam Kazan, competitive competitive enterprise institute. You said that a Darwinian would be aghast at the dominance of the United States, especially in terms of resource consumption.
Unless the Darwinian was an American.
All right, but now it seems to me a Darwinian, in fact, would admire that position as an example of survival.
Well, no, what I'm saying is this, that a Darwinian, let's say you're in China, okay, or any other country in the world outside the United States, you would say that this is a horrible thing, all the consumption that the Americans are doing. Yes, if you were a national social Darwinist advocating American world conquest and genocide of the rest of the world, you would view with approval. That's essentially the Nazi position vis-a-vis Germany, okay? But viewed from a more universal standpoint, okay, of anyone outside the United States, if you had that ideology, you would view the existence of the United States as a reprehensible thing. And that is why this ideology is basically incompatible with the existence of the United States. Because anyone who believes this ideology, unless they are an American nationalist, okay, you know, if you are representing a foreign power, or if you're taking the UN point of view, as it were, you would seek ways to constrain this overconsumption at the expense of the rest of the world by Americans, either through, you know, global warming legislation or through military aggression against the United States.
But when you talk about this ideology, are you focusing on it as a view of humanity or as an explanation of the development of species within the natural world?
I want to interject in there because this is one I want to clarify as well. So I have a bust of Darwin in my office just to let you know where I stand on Darwin. Darwin's contributions to the understanding of biology are what's behind the tremendous progress we have made in crop growth, animal husbandry, genetically modified organisms, and so on. And I want to make a clear distinction. You're not denying or arguing that species do not evolve through mutation and selection, and humans did not evolve the same way. You're making a distinction between the cultural ramifications of a certain view of Darwinism, not the underlying biology.
I am putting to the side the issue of Darwin vis-a-vis the biological realm, and I am addressing the issue of Darwinism extended by others and by Darwin to human social evolution. I mean, I'll read you a quote from Darwin, okay, and I want people to think about this. This is from his second book, well, not his second book, his second most important book, The Descent of Man, okay? He says, "We can see that in the rudest state of society, the individuals who were the most sagacious, who invented the best weapons and traps, and who were the best able to defend themselves, would rear the greatest number of offspring. The tribes, which included the largest number of men thus endowed, would increase in number and supplant other tribes. At the present day, civilized nations are everywhere supplanting barbarous nations, excepting where the climate opposes a deadly barrier, and they succeed mainly through their arts, which are the products of the intellect. It is therefore highly probable that with mankind the intellectual faculties have been mainly and gradually perfected through natural selection." So in other words, superior weaponry is an epiphenomenon of superior genes. Okay, the elimination of African tribes by British troops armed with Maxim guns is a demonstration of their genetic superiority, and it is a way in which progress occurs among humans. Well, this is not the way in which progress occurs among humans. First of all, it's directly counterfactual. I mean, look at the Mongols, okay? They're a bunch of despised nomadic tribes amounting to nothing, so they're genetically inferior. Then all of a sudden they manage to unite and conquer half the world and hold it for several centuries, so therefore they're the master race. And then they disintegrate, and now they're a bunch of nomads again that account to nothing. So did their genetic relationship to the rest of humanity change over these periods? No. Okay, it's